Hello to the chicos, hello to the chicas. Book review time, baby. Professor Helston. I don't know if he's a professor, but he's a professor of writing chess books. That much is certain. The guy is an absolute legend, and his second book, which is going to receive from me a little bit of a more mixed evaluation than his first, is still an absolute masterpiece. This is a must-have book for everyone who wants to get better at chess in general and understand strategy, positional chess in general. It's a mammoth, a boost of a book. So I will talk about that in a couple of minutes. Once again, must have, but here come the buts. So I will dismiss the book now so that I can talk with my hands as well. First and foremost, comparing this book to the previous Helston book, there is already a massive difference between the two just by looking at the first couple of pages of the book, and that is the following. The first book, you could pick it up and read it whilst having a coffee or whatever you do for 15 minutes, and there is a rock solid chance that at the end of that 15 minutes, you would walk away with some newly acquired knowledge. Knowledge that you can implement in your games. You can't possibly do that with this book. The reason for that is that not only the physicality of the book is tremendous, but the content of it too. And that means that you really need to invest time and mental energy to actually process what is on these pages, because this is heavy stuff. So forget about 10 minutes, I will just chuck up one of these examples and I will be good to go. Now you need to dedicate time, a lot of it, to actually go through this book. And on this note, I would like to right away clarify that in my opinion this book is not a good fit. In fact, it's a positively bad choice for anyone below 2000 FIDE. Don't go there is my recommendation. So if you haven't hit that mark more or less, don't bother about this book. That being said, if you are north of that rating range, please do get this book and study it thoroughly. Okay, this book requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it's going to pay dividends 100%. You just must accept the fact that this could take you a year easily. And I'm not exaggerating here at all. Think about this. The book has 240 examples and almost 400 test positions. And all positions are incredibly rich. You are not solving puzzles here, so it's not like half of them you will be able to crack by looking at it and finding the correct candidate move first up. This needs immense, deep thought. My second point, strongly relation to this rating range where I recommend and do not recommend this book, is that this is typically a book that I think would benefit a lot of people if they went through this with a coach who will support what's in the book. And that's where we come to the second but, so to speak, that I wanted to mention about this book, and that is that because of it aims to cover such a huge topic, it's remarkably broad. Therefore, it's really, really limited in how much it can say about moves, ideas, and games overall. A very big difference between his first book about opening strategy and this one, which I consider to be a weakness of this, but this is something that he had to do, is that none of the games actually start from move one. And so a very important part, in my opinion, of chess strategy, which is you play an opening, which then leads to a structure that you understand. This connection is not there at all. So unless someone explains to you where this position came from, you could be left a little bit hanging in there. And so you don't necessarily make those awesome connections where you go through the opening, you see that it's a Benoni, and you go like, all right, this is a Benoni structure, and so on. So that is already a bit of an issue there, but the book had to be remarkably concise, very, very to the point. Every sentence, every word is measured so that you're not holding in your hand a 7,000 page long monster book. And even as is, like I said, it attempts to achieve a lot, but I think that a lot of examples could teach you even more than what they do, but simply there was no room for the author to elaborate on a lot of ideas. And this again means that lower rated players not only potentially will miss out on certain learnings, but worse still, they might actually misinterpret and misunderstand certain concepts. I will come back to that through the examples. So once again, it's a really brilliant book, absolutely amazing collection of various topics, various ideas, really good games. Again, the author has done an absolutely monster job at gathering examples that are really well matching the topic and the ideas that he wants to model. Yeah, so kudos to him for that. My two warnings, and I try to avoid repeating myself like in the previous 5 videos that I tried to record about this book, is careful about when you start learning it and dedicate your time to it. Oh, and one more thing, forget about this book improving your blitz game and your 10-2 chess and all that nonsense. This is a chess book that is designed to help your chess. And when I say chess, I mean chess. Like when you actually have time on your clock to think. This book is deep. None of what is written in this book will you be able to reproduce, or hardly anything, in a 5-minute blitz game, or even a 10-10 or a 15-10 rapid game. Maybe some of it. But the idea is that here you really need to dig deep, to explore what's in the positions, to understand deeper connections. This is a chess book. It's aimed to make your chess better, and the content of it therefore is very rich. And that's why I told you it will require time for you to actually go through this and understand what's going on. And that is an absolute positive. I think that's the best thing I could say about a chess book, that it's really aiming to make you a better player. And it's aiming to make you sit over a position for 10, 15, 20 minutes even, to explore the deep connections, the deep ideas, the strategic plans, and so on, which is what really is chess about. So on that note, I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and I'm going to model a few ideas where I like things and there are things that I think can be quite tricky. First example from the chapter Pawn Play, which is a very complex chapter, by the way. We are looking at Karpov Grigorich here, and Karpov here played b takes c5 and then played pawn d5. Now there is no comment made about this move, and a lot of chess players on lower levels would go like, yeah, makes perfect sense, protected pass pawn, blunts the bishop, white is totally awesome. Whereas the big picture is actually far greater than this very short evaluation I just gave you. The only reason why this move is actually good is because the counter thrust c4 is not playable here, owing to the fact that the knight is hanging. If black could actually play his c4 and then get this knight back to c5, strategically speaking, or even play queen c7, knight d7, bishop here, strategically speaking, it would be a far easier play for black than white to play this position. We trade the dark squared bishop, the knight enters via c5, the d5 pawn eventually is going to be blockaded via e8, d6, and it's a terrible move with a horrid bishop behind it. It's an awesome move now because the c4 counterplay is not possible, but in my opinion, not mentioning this is almost misleading if you go through my train of thoughts of what I presented just there. Then move on. Knight a4, c4, perfectly logical now to back up the pawn. b4, rook f1. Now you look at this rook f1 and you go like, yeah, f4 is the plan. And that is true, but f4, man, is half of the time a positional suicide. Half of the time it's the right way to go. And again, the book only briefly mentions the fact that here, this is actually an acceptable move as opposed to a horrendous positional blunder, because after takes bishop d6, which aims to control all the dark squares, after takes, white has a tactical refutation of this idea. If black were to move here and I could just drop back the knight here and then blockade the pawn mass in the middle, white would be in a world of hurt. But unfortunately for black, after knight f5, the queen can just go freely wherever because of this tactic. And the knight on f6 falls. And so what that means is that the queen would have to drop back to d8, which in turn allows white to play for knight f3, e5, and no worries, white is doing perfectly fine because the blockade is not doable. But this, in my opinion, again, needs a very, very thorough explanation. So if I chose to teach this game as a lesson, I would probably hardly plan anything else alongside it, because by the time we get to the end of this and I explain all the positional concepts, an hour is gone. And you should bear that in mind when you are engaging with the vast majority of the examples in this book. And by the way, this is a very important moment to reflect on the fact that this book is about strategy, which is predominantly a positional idea. Forget about this whole business. You can't be a positional chess player or a tactical chess player. It doesn't exist. Or, well, it does in some funny lands, but it usually leads to very, very bad outcomes. And the reason for that is precisely this. There is a positional idea, and that is justified by a tactical one. And it doesn't matter what a positional genius you are, if you don't see the tactical reasons, tactical tricks that confirm and prove a variation correct, you can be the most amazing positional player in the world. You are not going to succeed. And so this is very important to grasp when you are dealing with this book, that it's not going to be like, oh, I need to find awesome positional plans and then I will be an awesome positional player. No, this is pure chess at its finest. And pure chess at its finest is always a very healthy mix of positional, strategic and tactical play. And I can guarantee you that if there ever was a component out of these three that you can never remove, that's going to be the tactical part. And so no matter how much this book is about strategy, it's also about tactics. Very often it's not written, not spoken, not explained, but it's there for you. Anyway, going on, he pushes in f5. He realizes that black is about to build set blockade, and so he pushes in and aims to pawn storm the black king. Knight e2, take, g4. Now this is very logical. This is a stock standard operation. Black can do nothing about it. So he actually runs, which is a good call, by the way. Bum, 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 bum. Bishop g4, typical Karpov genius. f6 is threatened with opening up this very nice diagonal. So Grigorich plays rook g8 to counterbalance that, so that after f6 takes, this is pinned. You do see that we're talking here about very serious positional depth, positional and tactical depth. So Karpov plays king f2 with the idea of dominating the h-file. Grigorich goes rook h8 because now f6 is no longer threatened, because white has got far less influence on the f-file. So now the h-file gets contested, queen d1, plan queen here, rook here, queen behind. But there is more to it, and I'm sorry that I'm talking so fast, but there is so much more to show. Queen g1, knight b6, rook h2 as per planned, and again Grigorich pulls off the best defense and goes home, so that if white goes queen h1, queen f8 holds the h-file. And this is the point where the game really gets absolutely amazing. Karpov plays knight b3, aiming to hit this guy, and then plays king f3. And I can guarantee you that when Karpov played back here queen d1, he already saw that the queen from g1 is going to target this weak pawn on c5. These are things that Karpov back in the day took 20 minutes to figure out. And that is exactly why I'm telling you that the things that you take away from this book will be really, really amazing for your long-time control chess. Deep ideas like this, unless you are like 3200 rated in Blitz, are perfectly useless for your Blitz and even rapid play. So this is real prep for real chess. knight back, and because of the chapter is about pawn play, here comes the amazing idea a3. Now I would spend 10 minutes as a coach on explaining this, because one of the most important phenomenons in chess, which is observed in 90% of chess games as a tendency, that when one side has a remarkably sizable space advantage, in this case on the king side, traditionally we try to defeat our opponent there, and our opponent would seek counterplay on the other side. And we tend to, as much as possible, not even look there, let alone play moves on the other side. And here actually a different positional concept is at play, which is that when you are attacking on one side like mad, but your opponent just holds, almost always the best strategy is to open a second front, because defending on two fronts is extremely difficult. Also extremely difficult is to attack on both fronts, mind you, but this example is actually one that proves that this is the case. And after rook a2, all of a sudden we can just totally abandon this h file for the sake of utilizing the a and b. A very, very deep concept that required very thorough considerations, because these two rooks look scary, man. But turns out that there is no good penetration point, and black had to abandon this idea altogether in order to run to the rescue of the queen's side, but too little too late. The queen comes in from a5, and black had to throw in the towel. Now I spent on this game 16, well, I mean, I had a big chat, at least 10 minutes. I don't understand everything that went down in this game, and I have gone through this game already 3 times. I would have to revisit it, analyze, check the moves, figure out what's going on. So hopefully this models for you what is awaiting for you if you engage with this fantastic book. Difficult but fantastic book. Let me show you another example about how immensely the examples range from super easy to whoa. I actually figured out the first 9 moves of this game. It's not in the book once again, which once again I would like to mention as a bit of a So this is about prophylaxis, right? And he chooses a brilliant example to introduce his topic. White plays g3, prevents the knight from moving the knight from moving here to or here. Prophylactic, before the knight comes in, I'm already preventing. Bishop e7, again h4, beautiful move, prevents bishop g5, although I would not call this move prophylactic. I would call this a simple defending move, because we're defending a threat. It would have been prophylactic if he had played it in this position, already foreseeing that plan. That's the definition of prophylaxis, when you are preparing against threats that are not on the board yet. Bishop e7 is actually a direct positional threat of trading bad bishop for good. So h4 is less so prophylactic, but still it models the idea brilliantly. Castles, bishop d2, b6, knight d1. Now that's a great maneuver to bring the knight to one of these very weak squares. And this is typically a position where I would have a big talk to my students, because the vast majority of them he would play either bishop d3 or bishop h3, but it would certainly be a bishop somewhere. And then we would have to have a big talk about the fact that actually no, don't do that, because this bishop, we don't know where it should go. More than likely it's gonna be h3, but what is certain is that this knight is standing amazingly well on e3. Development is of no importance at all now, because the position is utterly closed, and therefore this maneuver easily outweighs the development of the bishop, which is not important at all. And again, it's not exactly mentioned like that in the book. Knight f6, h5, knight f5, and black resigned, because after g6, knight e7, queen e7, bishop g5, they are losing 7 million tons of material. So you go like, okay, that was an absolute whitewash, and I totally get it. And then you move on to literally the next example of the same chapter in this book is this. And now, my friends, you are going from previous game, which was Donner against rather unknown chess player, to short Kasparov World Championship match. I think it was, but it's short Kasparov for sure. And short plays in this position b4. Now this move would come up on my radar after about 15 minutes of thinking as to what to do here for white. Because very clearly we have a very, very mobile position. We have a very logical rook doubling on the f file. But as soon as you start looking at these things, you realize that bishop c5 is very, very annoying, and black is going to be able to trade enough pieces so that the attack is insufficient. Now, in order to counter this with b4 is a huge issue to overcome, because it's extremely anti-positional. It voluntarily makes this a backward pawn, weakens the c4 square, although that's largely theoretical or academic rather than practical. But on top of it all, the d4 bishop is the worst piece on the board. And so it goes extremely against one's instinct to prevent the trade of my worst piece for their best. But in a very funny and crooked way, the d4 bishop actually prevents all black's counterplay, because black's counterplay is relying on two things, the d file and this diagonal. And this overgrown pawn on d4 that we call now the bishop is fully denying both. And so b4 as a prophylactic move is a work of a genius, but it's typically a move that is awful 98 times out of 100, and this is one of those two where it's just like, wow, man. And then to make it even better, after knight g7, of course, we counter with g4, denying again the knight's exit, or rather escape, from g7, thus ruining the whole entire black army. And if you put yourself on the black side of the board, you will realize that it's extremely difficult to come up with a plan. Like, I can play a5, but a3 is coming, and the best I have is to try to play for the a file. But even that is rather difficult, because rook, queen are both looking down there too. And so Kasparov in this position went h5, h3 of course, a5, a3, rook d7, rook f3, and queen d8. Now this is a great defensive mechanism, which is based on the idea that if I go here, then after take, bishop takes b4, I'm going to cry. And so short, he plays rook b1, preempting this whole threat. And only after bishop g5 does he go to rook f1, because now this is not on. And after bishop e7 comes the very rude awakening for Kasparov. Takes, the knight takes f7. Rook takes f7. Boomshki, baby. Once again, proving my point that yes, you are looking at a strategy / positional book, and no, forget about it. There is no pure positional chess. Every single positional chess has an extreme amount of tactics in it, but it may remain behind the scenes because of certain variations were not chosen by the other side. But you can't play pure chess like that, and neither should you aim to. Pure chess is when you have all components incorporated into your chess. Of course, you should, and in fact, you really should have a preference whether you like positional tactical play, because, for example, your opening choices will be largely driven by that preference. But that doesn't exempt you from having to be extremely sharp tactically and very, very alert to strategic ideas as well. And after take, check, and bishop g6, it's now mate in 4. Beautiful, beautiful game. But again, this game would require very thorough analysis from you to fully understand the subtleties of the ideas of b4, g4, and how the game continued afterwards. So, in summary, Helston's second book is just as much a masterpiece as the first one, but we have got a few buts. First of all, it's not digestible for any knowledge level, which I would almost say is applicable to the first book. Second of all, the topic of the book is extremely deep, difficult to digest. Therefore, it requires a lot of dedication, a lot of time, and really the hunger from the reader that they want to actually immerse themselves in these topics and get better at it. Be sure that you don't go to this book too soon. My recommendation is about FIDE 2000. And also I recommend that you either do it with a coach or with regularly in liaising with a coach whilst you are going through, perhaps taking notes when you are having questions, because I can guarantee you, you will have many questions when going through this book that might not have an answer written in there. So Helston has done it again. Yet another magnificent book, Mastering Chess Strategy. I do recommend this book very highly, but you have to take into considerations everything, in my opinion, that I just have said. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back with more soon. Bye.